This is Yusuf Alta here at my video, or at my channel. Right now, got so many topics. I don't know which one I should start out with first. First of all, if you talk to me on Skype, the Skype cam is not working. Again, I really want to talk to Skeptical Heretic about that. But the same issues, many issues keep getting raised, and let me give my opinion on certain things affecting Orthodoxy first. Somebody says, well, you don't need an emperor to make it an ecumenical council, because there were so many ecumenical councils, or supposed so many councils called, but they weren't deemed ecumenical councils or councils to be followed because they weren't accepted by the people. So it's not just the emperor, you know, the people can call the council. I said, the people can't call a council. You need an emperor to call the council. Now, whether that's correct is whether it gets backed up by the people or not, you know? It's not, you just can't go the opposite way and just say, oh, well, since it doesn't matter what the emperor thinks, but he's the one who needs to call it. Now, if you want to have Putin, if you want to declare him emperor and have him say, well, there's issues that are happening within the Orthodox Church that needs to be resolved, then okay. And even then, I don't know if I would accept it. Now, there have been synods that have been accepted, but not ecumenical councils. There will be some people who say, well, there's an eighth and a ninth ecumenical council and things like this. But people say a council is coming very soon. I would reject that because, okay, let's say, okay, we have the Russian Patriarch call it, or we have the Ecumenical Patriarch call it, or we have whoever call it, or, you know, all of the seas call it, or whatever. Aren't we going down the same road Rome went down? They want to figure out, because there's jurisdiction lines in America that cross, so what? Is this a big issue? Is there any theological issues at hand? No. My fear is that the Orthodox Church will then go down the road the Roman Catholic Church went down. The Orthodox Church has always said, we are the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. We are the one church. Now, I look at this, and I also look at history too. And I say, okay, Rome was a see of the Orthodox Church, of the Holy Catholic and Apostolic Orthodox Church. It started gaining strange teachings in the 4th century, and then it became basically a Frankish church under Charlemagne, and then it, you know, moved around, moved away, and by 1054 it was too much. I mean, the split was inevitable way before 1054. Even before Photius, before 900, when he saw the Filioque, before even Charlemagne, the split was coming, or either split or rejection of these things in the West that had become near dogmatic, if not dogmatic. Alright, and then you had the break off of the Calvinists, the Lutherans, and the Anglicans from the Roman Catholics. They didn't break off directly from Orthodox, and their intent was to get back to historic Christianity without the additions, basically to get back to Orthodoxy. Now they might not like Orthodoxy at its present state 500 years ago, or now, or whenever, or may think there were some add-ons there too, or taking away things. But what happens if we say, oh, well, the Protestants are Christians too, and and so are the Catholics, but they're just not part of, and they're Christians, but they're not part of the church. First of all, I think that's a horrible insult to them and a horrible insult to us. We should never say that. Now, we already do say that, but we shouldn't have a council saying it. When a little old lady says, this is the one true church, and all those outside the true church will not be saved. She is 100% correct. But we don't have systematic dogma or doctrine, or there's no hard and fast rules. When somebody says, you must be baptized and take the Eucharist in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, yes. But the Orthodox Church has always understood, look, there's a thief on the cross. There's the Roman soldier. There's many examples. There's people dying as martyrs who never had baptism. And the Didache shows you, look, if you can't do baptism this way, do it 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 this way. If. And finally it gets down to the jail cells in the year 200 in Rome, where they just had, basically bowls of water that they would drink before, before they'd go out and get killed. And then instead of quenching their thirst, they baptized people. And they went out joyous. Had they taken the Eucharist? It's God who decides. There are Christians out there who believe in the Trinity, who believe in the hypostatic union, who probably know Christ better than I do. And I don't mean know him, I mean know him in their heart, know to do the right thing. The Orthodox Church seems to be the last mystical church. Rome has mysticism in it and can return. And individual Roman Catholics basically can return to that mysticism, but the problem is it got explained away. You had people like Augustine, Anselm, Aquinas, trying to explain these things, what happens and when and where and this. Aquinas' explanation of the Holy Mysteries with transubstantiation is just an abomination. We can't just say it's just a mystery of God, we don't know what it is. My defense, when the Protestants ask me, but what is it? I say, I don't know. But why do you honor it so much? Because it was always done, because people were in fear of this. Even in the writings of the New Testament, people were said, don't take this wrongly, you can eat of it to your own condemnation. And then the person asked me about breaking of bread. Well, Jesus sat down and broke bread with these people. I said, yes, but the Eucharist, when it was first started at Passover, which is Pascha, which is Easter, Pascha for us, this is what we see it as. And that was a Seder meal. That was a special sacrifice. He said, this is the blood of the new covenant. This is the new covenant. This is the establishment of the new covenant. This is my body broken for you. He was doing this before it happened. Before he had gone to the cross. Before his body was broken. Before his blood spilled out. Before his blood was on the cross. He did this. This goes. I'm fine with this because I believe that the events that we call the great feast days and even Pascha are apocalyptic. They crack the cosmos. There's something apocalyptic about this. There's something taking away the veil. They're almost outside of time, and especially the crucifixion is outside of time. So we could do this before that was done. Now, something very important to point out is that all Christians in the church everywhere celebrated the Eucharist as the central point, as the high point of worship in their church. It was always there. Every Sunday, I could say every service, but especially every Sunday. Let me narrow it down. Every Sunday of the week. For people say, oh well, in this area here they did it only Sunday, this day and that day, and then, but it was Sunday done always. The Eucharist was part of the service, and it was always treated with awe and respect. Is this the body? Tertullian writes about it. He says it's a symbol. And he says it is actually body and blood of Christ. Now, people say it's just a symbol. Symbols aren't just anything. Symbols have power and meaning behind them. That's not why there's nothing that's just a symbol. Oh, the swastika, it's just a symbol. No, it conveys a specific message. It invokes fear or honor or whatever side of the thing you're on. Yes, it's a symbol, but it's not just a symbol. It's very powerful. Symbols are very, very powerful. We seem to forget this. I don't know why we forget it. We live in such an image-based culture. Maybe we've seen so many images that images are, but when we see something like the flag of Islam, the black flag of war that the Taliban had, that strikes fear. When we see, I would say a Roman Catholic crucifix, but now that's become very benign and fashionable. See a swastika. Notice I'm always using negative images or very bad images or something that invoke, because they invoke things very strongly. And it seems like that's all we have left, because there's nothing positive, because we've been told in the West for 500 years iconoclasm. So the only symbols are negative, I mean, what else can I say? What else can I compare to the swastika? I mean, people so ignorant of history. I could say the rising sun of Hirohito, but people might not know that one. The double lightning bolts, KKK, these things. They immediately evoke a response whether you want to or not. They're both intellectual and emotional. That's what the Eucharist did, but it was further than that, because Paul warns, you can drink and eat of this to your own damnation, to your own condemnation. People were scared of this. So is it the body and blood of Christ? Yes. Oh, Thomas Aquinas went and explained how it could be with this and that. No, it's a holy mystery. No. Is it a symbol? Yes. Okay, is it the body and blood of Christ? Yes. When Christ said, "This is my body," how should we interpret "this is my body" and this? No, you take just like the way we deal with Genesis, why we're not creationists. This is truth. Now, it doesn't talk about hydrogen and oxygen and stars forming this and that, so that wasn't the message at all. When it talks about the creation of man, it didn't go through the Darwinian links and the, where man came from, and, the whole birth process and this and that. So, I mean, even when it says, okay, Seth was born, it didn't go through, okay, and then, he entered the semen that went through the fallopian tube, met the egg, and then it went to the, uterus, and no. Are all these true? Yes. When you start using words like fact and allegory and how to separate that out, we don't know. We can't do it. We're not allowed to do it. We're not supposed to do it. That's not the point. When you read Genesis, what's the point you get from it? God created the world, and it is good. It's not the world of the Marcionites or the Docetists or these other Gnostic groups, some Gnostic groups. Some people on here, when I say Gnostic, get very freaked out, so they'll say some Gnostic groups where this world is bad. And for a while, it sounded like the Roman Catholics were teaching that. I don't want to offend the Roman Catholics, but it almost sounded like if it was from nature, it was bad, and that's where paganism comes from, nature worship and stuff like that, and the spiritual world's good. Okay, we know this world is good. Evil came into it. That's the anomaly. It's not the doing of good. Evil is sick and twisted and out of place. When you see a mother withhold food from her child and slap her child around and push it away, that's not how it should be, right? Most mothers should embrace and love their child, which is good. It's evil that's the anomalous thing. When you have, I don't know how it just seems so simple, but yet when people try to get their systematic theology or systematic dogma or systematic doctrine, or say tradition's wrong and this and that, well then what do you have? You use the Bible as an idol, but the New Testament that you're using took about 300 years to compile, and it was compiled by people who didn't believe anything that you're believing when you're holding up the Bible saying this is the only thing, this is the Word of God. I can get creationism from this, I can get penal substitution that didn't even exist until Anselm, which was, what, 600-700 years later, but yet that must be believed. I mean, there's so much, I mean, this is my issue with Protestantism. Now, I'm not talking about Christians who may identify themselves as Protestant, or I'm talking about the actual believing Protestants, the James Whites, these people, you know, the ministers of the Protestant Church. They're more concerned about being Protestant than just being Christian. Because if you just wanted to be just a Christian, I'd say you'd have to be Orthodox. You may not agree with everything, but you'd say, okay, I'm going to go back to the church. I'm going to go home to the church, to the ancestral church that can trace its roots back to, instead of just somebody picking up a Bible and starting their own church, the church that was founded by Christ and the apostles. Maybe you don't agree with everything, but let's see what's going on there, and let's see their take. And did it differ? I mean, because we have a lot of the writings through the centuries. Up until when would I disagree, or was this introduced, or why was it? And then you begin to have a greater understanding. People reading stuff out of pre-Christian Jewish writings, the Tanakh, the Old Testament, and then talking about Christian theology and gaining theology out of that, or why would you do that? Christ has already come. What do you need that for? Well, the Orthodox Church say, use that as a mirror, as a reflection. That's the story of you, and take it allegorically. Do I believe that there was an actual person named Abraham and he had 12 sons? Yeah. Or Jacob and he had 12 sons? Yes, I do. Now, as for what was right, what was wrong, what they did, why concern yourself with that? Christ has come in the flesh. You are not a Jew. You are a Christian. You want to be a Jew? Go be a Jew. Look to Christ. Well, it says in this gospel that he did this and that, and should we act like that? Hold on. So how he acted 2,000 years ago in a different culture and a different time, you apply that to modern day? Do you change that at all? Do you say, well, if I'm doing it in modern day, we have a totally different culture, we have different technology, we're living in a totally different world. Isn't the love of Christ, the compassion, the two greatest commandments, love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself, aren't these the two greatest commandments? Can't you do that? Oh no, we got to read and study the Bible and pick out all these things. And faction off and faction off and faction off. Well, what about the other Gospels? The early church already said no. So, your basis of rejecting the other Gospels, whether they're Gnostic, whether they're Marcionite, whether they're Cerinthian, whether they're Ebionite, whether they're whatever they are, or whether they're quasi-canonical, Acts of Philip, Acts of Paul and Thecla, Acts of this, Acts of that, Shepherd of Hermes, the Didache, the First Clement, Letters of Ignatius, which were part of the early codices. Why look back to that? You can look back to it, yes, read it. I've read those things too, of course, right. But if you're a Protestant, Why would you trust us, being around 400 years after the fact, 400 years after the birth of Christ about, to collect works and say, yes, these are the ones that'll be read during liturgy. And you actually don't even use the Eastern canon, you use the Roman canon. Then you cut out some because you don't like it. And you say sola scriptura and then totum scriptorum or something like that, like total scripture, to find out. You turn it into an idol. Well, what's more Christian thing to do? To read the Bible and preach a very Protestantized message, because they care about, you have to be Protestant first, and then Christianity comes second. Protestant, and it's, the thought process is crazy. No, we're just Christian. But then you have the 5 points and the Bible and all this other stuff. It's really weird. How about you go out help someone? Just start out helping people. And then when they ask you, why are you helping me, you say, well, I'm helping God. To me, you are Christ right now. That when I help you, I help Christ. When you help the least of my brother, and you are helping me. They knew that saying, early Christians. Or to go out and to be human, to actually love people, to actively go out and be a good person. Or, I challenge you to even find this in the Bible. Is it to be a Christian to stand out on a street corner with Bible tracts telling them if they don't say these magic words, they're going to hell? Or we're going out evangelizing. That's the gospel is in there. Is that word basically means the gospel. The good news. Here's a tract. It basically says, become a Christian or burn in hell forever. People say, yep, that's Christianity. That God did not, that God was kicked out. That God was always the enemy of the church. Because there were people around calling themselves Christians who promoted that view of God. And every single time, the church said no. The church calls these people heretics and firstborn of Satan and things like that. But then John Calvin comes along, and Martin Luther comes along, and Martin Luther resurrects a new form of Marcionism, and John Calvin resurrects some almost near Gnosticism, and then they go out and they say, oh, this is Christianity. What happened to the Eucharist? What happened to tending to the sick, burying the poor? Why don't you shut up about God? Just help somebody out. Just because you can see them are made in the image and likeness of God. Try to love them just for who they are, and not care about what label is on them. And say, I believe God is love, and let Christ work through me to help this person. And if at the end of the day you don't know what their beliefs are, say, I'm a Christian, can I please pray for you? If they say, oh, well, I don't believe, but yeah, this and that. They will have more of an experience with Christ there than they will with reading some horrible Bible tract. And they'll be closer to Christ because they'll have experienced a little bit of Christ. And it won't just be... This is why I almost don't want to call myself a Christian. I actually don't. That's why I say Eastern Orthodox or Syriac Chalcedonian, or because of what modern day America and the rest of the world call Christian is so unchristian and heretical to me that it must be, it's something totally different. And the funny thing is, Antioch, our holy see, is the first place that we got called Christians. Before then, we were known as the followers of the way. It's great that I made videos because a lot of transgendered people, they'd say, well, I could go to one of these Metropolitan churches or an Episcopalian church that, preach that Christ really didn't, that being gay is totally fine and this and that, blah, blah, blah. But they said I knew that's not what the historic church taught. What does the historic church think of me? So I directed them to talk to some bishops. And now they're part of the Orthodox Church. And is it okay that they're that way? That's none of my business or anybody else's business. That's between them, their spiritual father, and their priest. And they work that out. If they want to share some things with me, that's fine. We're not going to water down the message at all. But we're not going to pour poison and toxins into it and say, you're going to hell if screaming, and there's no proselytizing. I mean, that's why I thought, well, in Christianity you really don't have a choice, because you either accept Jesus or God's going to throw you into a tormenting, burning pit of hell. Because that's what I've heard. Now when I went to the Orthodox Church and started studying historic Christianity, where the message has never changed, I found out something very different. I found the Jesus of the Gospels. Because the way Jesus acts in the Gospels, no Protestant with their theology can act. They can't say this Samaritan, this heretic, this pagan, this other person, go and sin no more, God loves you. Whoa! Kneel down, say the sinner's prayer, do this. I mean, it's a strange thing. And then they say, go by the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. And then when it comes to warfare, people always either... what's right and what's wrong is written on your heart. Like I said, if one of the people who I knew when I was going to the masjid came up to me and wanted to kill me, I would probably say, I love you and I forgive you, you don't know what you're doing. Because they truly don't know what they're doing. It's not, those wouldn't be empty words. If somebody who was intending to rape a woman or kill me or do something else, attack a child, would I say, oh, I must turn the other cheek? No, you pick up a sword and you fight. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Because you defend the weak. Because that's what a Christian man does. We should all look at ourselves as knights, or samurais, or noble people. That's what the Orthodox Church gives, that no other church can give. And we stand strong. Even if I were an atheist, why would I act any other way? Because it seems to me that every atheist I've come across on YouTube, or anti-theist, wants to throw away their whole culture, all of their traditions, which basically the Protestants had thrown it away first. That's why I equate both of them. Throw away a lot of the beauty, the meaning, the symbols, the rituals. Man is a religious animal. It needs religion. And without these ancient ones that were built up organically over time, you get manufactured ones. You get ones that were put up overnight. Or you get ones created by the state itself. If I became a Satanist or an atheist, you guys won't know about it. Because orthodoxy is the most human, normal thing to do. Peace to you. May God save Serbia and Syria. And may He protect all the Christians in Damascus. Take it easy. Somebody says, well, you don't need an emperor to make it an ecumenical council, because there were so many ecumenical councils, or supposed so many councils called, but they weren't deemed ecumenical councils or councils to be followed, because they weren't accepted by the people. So it's not just the emperor, the people can call the council. I said, the people can't call a council. You need an emperor to call the council. Now, whether that's correct is whether it gets backed up by the people or not, It's not, people say a council is coming very soon. I would reject that because, okay, let's say, we have the Russian Patriarch call it, or we have the Ecumenical Patriarch call it, or we have whoever call it, or, all of the seas call it, or whatever. Aren't we going down the same road Rome went down? They want to figure out, because there's jurisdiction lines in America that cross, so what? This is Yusuf Alta here at my video, or at my channel. Right now, got so many topics. I don't know which one I should start out with first. First of all, if you talk to me on Skype, the Skype cam's not working. Again, I really want to talk to Skeptical Heretic about that. But the same issues, many issues keep getting raised. And let me give my opinion on certain things affecting Orthodoxy first. You just can't go the opposite way and just say, oh, well, since it doesn't matter what the emperor thinks, but he's the one who needs to call it. Now, if you want to have Putin, if you want to declare him emperor and have him say, well, there's issues that are happening within the Orthodox Church that needs to be resolved, then okay. And even then, I don't know if I would accept it. Now, there have been synods that have been accepted, but not ecumenical councils. There will be some people who say, well, there's an eighth and a ninth ecumenical council and things like this. But is this a big issue? Is there any theological issues at hand? No. My fear is that the Orthodox Church will then go down the road the Roman Catholic Church went down. The Orthodox Church has always said, we are the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. We are the one church. Now, I look at this, and I also look at history too. And I say, okay, Rome was a see of the Orthodox Church, of the Holy